want a loan to start a small business.
Small business.
Small business.
I work for a small business.
A small business.
I'm saving money to buy a small business.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Small Business Survival Guide podcast, where entrepreneurs from the pest control world share their tips to help your business thrive in the real world. Join us as we break down the business game and steer you towards success. I'm with my co-host Carly. Carly, how are we doing?
Hello.
A big one today. I wanted to talk about personal development, particularly my own story around that. So it's a rather personal one. And for those that know me, I don't even like when people ask me what I had for lunch. I'm quite a private person, but I really wanted to talk about this one because it does relate to so much of what we've been talking about in the podcast already. And I guess I wanted to cast back to, we talked about in a previous episode around the business was going great when we took over for the first couple of years, and then it started to go backwards. We had a year or two that was really tough, and it raised a whole lot of questions around, well, what is this all about? And that overlapped with the same time that our first son was born in Carter.
Yep.
And so that brought up a whole lot of fears for me, fears that I didn't have previously. So up until that age, I was, went from being a teenager to in my 20s, and I just maintained that fearless approach of I wasn't really scared of taking over the business, having staff, making $100 million with the immature ego that said, I'll just make all this money. And yeah, it never happened.
By 26 or something, wasn't it?
By 30.
Oh, okay,
so,
sorry.
Yeah, the goal was 100 million by the time I was 30, and I was only 100 million off. So,
Yeah.
But it as I say, it kind of all overlapped. The business wasn't doing great, and it made me think, well, is it really just about the money? And that's when I realized it can't just be about trying to make money in business. It's a key part. You want to be able to support your family better than if you were just an employee. But having it as the end goal, for me personally, wasn't the vision. I realized I wanted to help the industry. I wanted to help support the industry, change the industry, do all those sorts of things. But for me, I wanted to talk about more of the personal side, where when Carter came along, I suddenly found myself with all these fears that I didn't have before. I guess Jacob had a big part in helping us with the business side of it. His father, my uncle Nick or Bodie, was a big part of helping me with the personal side of it. And so that's when I guess I realised I needed to do work on myself. I had this big fearless approach. If you're wearing all the armour, then things don't hurt you. But when you take that armour off and you go underneath it, and you become vulnerable, it's a scary place. And so realising that I needed to do a lot of work on that for myself, for the business, but more so for our relationship. And as a father, I realised I needed to do a lot of work there. And one of the biggest fears I had was actually that I would end up following the same relationship that I had with my father, in that whether or not he ever said it, he probably didn't mean to, but by the time I was 18, I really didn't need my dad anymore. So I have a relationship with him. I love my dad, and I'm always happy to chat with him. But if I went 3 weeks or a month without chatting to him, I don't even really realise that it's happened. So I've got that relationship, but he gave me this great independence.
Independence.
So by the time I was 18, I moved out of home, and I had that independence. And
I think he did say it. I think he did say, you won't need me anymore, because that's how he was raised.
Yeah, and I guess that's the comparison. If I talk about his dad, my grandfather, he grew up in Karachi, which was India at the time, and when he was 6 years old, he got on a train that took 2 days to get to the Himalayas, and for 9 months of the year, at 6 years old, he was in boarding school.
Yeah.
So, and I asked him that only a couple of years back. He's 93 now, and he's still of the same opinion that 6-year-olds should go off to boarding school. So, he didn't have anywhere a close relationship with his parents, and then he created that with my dad, where they didn't have a close relationship. And then, my dad had a much closer relationship than that, but there was still that independence that he taught me. And linking it back to Carter, my fear was that I love this son, and when he's 18, he'll go off and, will he want to know me kind of thing.
Well, you didn't know at the time that I wouldn't let him, so
You weren't going to let him out of home.
he'll be
even at
living with
18.
us till like 40, won't he?
Well, I
No,
don't know
I'm
if
kidding.
I'm happy
I'm
with that
kidding.
either.
Yeah.
Bringing it all of that up, I realised I needed to work on myself, and I also realised that I could change the story and change the relationship with my kids now.
We call it generational patterns, don't we? And you wanted to break it.
Yeah. I think that was the key. Is I
Yeah.
wanted a closer relationship with my kids than I had with my father, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I love
No,
my dad, and
yeah.
it's a generational thing. Like most people of our age had similar relationships with their parents. He did go nuts and tell me he loved me like twice a year. So I was like, this is too much. But I've changed that with our kids. I'll tell them I love them 5-10 times a day and give them hugs and that. So a lot closer, which I love, and the fact that I can do the school pickups and the drop-offs and that. I've got a lot closer relationship with our kids now. But I guess the part, like I say, I keep bringing it back to I had to do work on myself and recognise that I had stuff from my childhood, and that affected the way I would show up in our relationship, and how I started to show up with work as well. And if I didn't do work on myself, none of that was going to change. I can't change the external if I don't change the internal. And that took a long time, and it's still a work in progress. It's a bit like going to the gym. You can go to the gym 5 times a week, but if you stop, you've stopped. So personal development for me is an ongoing thing that you're working on all the time. And when I link it back to the work conversation, it was around if you have a team that you need to support, have a business that you need to support. We talked about in another episode that if you're not looking after yourself, then you're not going to be able to support that team. So I guess sticking with the work part of the conversation, I think even in a professional environment, if you're not doing work on yourself and you're not being the best version of yourself, then it's going to have an effect. And that could be surviving a small business like what we're talking about in our podcast, or that could be at a corporate level in a huge business. And I guess jumping around a little bit, what we found over the last 3 or 4 years or 5 years as we've grown, so we went from a small business where you and I controlled everything and knew everything to needing to have managers in between that are supporting different areas. And whenever we've had managers that weren't doing work on themselves and weren't showing up being the best version of themselves, it had a huge effect on the business.
Yeah.
And to their credit, a lot of them have done work on themselves, and those that haven't, probably the ones that haven't and weren't the right fit in that role aren't here anymore. But I guess my point is, it really became obvious to me, even though I was doing work on myself prior to that. That's when I realised as a team, we kind of all need to be acknowledging our own stuff and working on our own stuff.
Yeah, and it's part of what we've brought into the company as well, with the help of Jacob and Harmony, and
Exactly.
their facilitating of that sort of stuff. So it's not reliant on us to teach it necessarily all the time, but it comes from someone else. As we know, Jacob's really good at what he does. So, and I love Harmony. She speaks to me in my language, so I get it. And I think for our team as well, that's really great to have other people doing that for us, one, to remind us, but also to be part of the team as well, to know that we're alongside them on the journey.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that has made a massive difference, having their support and having that framework. And like I say, that when everybody's showing up being the best version of themselves, it has a massive effect on everyone around them. But that starts with you and I as well.
Yeah.
If we weren't doing that, the management team wouldn't be able to do that. The rest of the team below that wouldn't be able to do that.
Oh, we have to show up. There's many days where I don't want to show up. But, yeah, we do. And with the help of, internally, but also with the help of some of the coaching and things like that, we've got better tools in place to navigate those things too, because we're people as well.
Yeah, we're human.
Yeah.
So I think there's 2 parts to it. Everybody is everybody has childhood stuff that affects them in their adult life, and it's whether or not we want to recognise that. And there's no shame in that. There's no stigma needed. It's just acknowledging and recognising that can often be what triggers us in different moments.
You don't even realise.
No. Unless you're doing the work and reflecting and being aware of your own stuff, then nothing changes.
Yeah. I was told the other day, I went and saw a Reiki lady, side note, and we were discussing a few things, and I said, I don't like change. And she said, oh, well, that's from childhood. We can investigate that and work out why. And I'm like, oh, really? Because I thought I was just OCD and like to process and have to do things a certain way. And when things change, my brain goes, But no, apparently it's from childhood.
Yeah, well, it makes perfect sense. And it's stepping outside that comfort zone. And if we were taught not to do it because it's scary or dangerous, then it becomes much harder.
Yeah.
I guess I wanted to touch on the 3 areas that we could process things from. Our thinking mind in our head, which is where a lot of us sit. And then you can overanalyze things. And then you've got your feeling, processing your feelings in your heart, the emotions, and in another important area to be able to process. And then you've got your instinct in your gut. You just know. And I recognise that one of my great strengths is I've always just known. So I've made a lot of decisions from my gut, even though I'm very analytical with numbers and different things. Once I have all the facts, I can just make a decision really quickly. And I guess jumping around a bit, that's where we've clashed at times, because I can make a big decision fast because I just know, and you're more around needing time to process it and that.
Take the data in and think about what could go wrong and what those solutions would be. And then if I'm okay with that, then okay, let's make the decision, as an example.
That's right.
Yeah.
Learning all the different tools in the framework, like that's what I do, and process it, or understanding that we make all decisions from love and fear. All decisions we make are either from love or fear, no matter the decision, big or small. So just being aware of when I'm making decisions, which space is it from? When you're making decisions, which space is it from?
Yeah. And it comes down to how we were raised, and when we were younger too, because I would acknowledge that a lot of my decisions are based on fear, as we know.
Yeah. You said that, not me. So.
Well, I'm just saying what you tell me, but as you have the tools and you take time to analyse and see what's going on, it's not like I sit there and go, oh, I'm coming from fear. It's just when you think about decisions you've made, which sometimes we do, where we go, is that the right one? Is that the wrong one? Depending on what happens, and this could be anything in life, work, anything, you do need to take a step back and go, did I do that because I was scared of something going wrong? Or did I do that because this is what will happen and that's okay and that's what I want, if that makes sense? So, and generally I won't want to do that because fear inside and because I'm conservative. That's how I am. Risk-taking, you're a risk-taker, your risk profile is high, mine is low. We complement each other because we meet in the middle because I make you. But yeah, we are very different. So, and that's okay. And I would suggest that most of the world is make decisions based on fear.
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
Because that's how we're raised.
And we have 80,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are negative.
Yep.
So,
yep.
In many respects, it's what keeps you safe.
Yeah, that's right.
But in many things, it's what holds us back.
Yep. And that's why you're so good at what you do.
I tend to make decisions from love, not fear. But to your point around, you're a lot more conservative, and I'm often much more of a risk taker. That's also been a clash, and that's part of the reason why I've needed to do the work, is because if it triggers me that I want to go and take on the world and you don't want to, then we can clash. And so it's had a big effect on our relationship, and that's why I've had to do the work. Is it's not a judgment on you. That's the way you do things, and it's up to me to take responsibility for the way I respond or react, and to do it in the right way and respect, your process and what you're about. And that's been a key part. So the learnings over the last 10 years have shown me a lot of the things I was already doing, but then a lot of tools and framework that that have helped support that growth personally.
Yeah.
And when the team's gotten above 20, the pressure of work has been immense. And, I think I always think of the Men in Black quote. Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith are sitting there on the park bench and the world's about to end. And, is it M and J? M says to J, he says, why don't we just tell the whole world that, these aliens are about to blow up Earth? And he said, the only way to keep people safe is from them not knowing about it. In other words, you just have to hold things and not let the rest of the world know. I don't know if I said that well at all, but my point is we have to hold so much space around the pressures of the business that the team have no idea about.
Yeah.
The world could be ending tomorrow, financially or whatever, because we're struggling with something, and it's like you can't share all of that with the team. You can't burden them with the pressure of being the owner. At the same time, you can't hide, if we don't have enough jobs coming in or revenue or whatever, we can still communicate that, but giving them the pressure or the concern, is never been, it doesn't help giving the team the pressure or the hard time if we've got those pressures.
Yeah, and whether you've got 20 people or you don't have any people or you have one person, it's still very similar. So we know that business owners, especially in this day and age, dealing with all sorts of things, different generations, COVID, finances, like there's a lot of pressure there for everyone.
Yeah.
But when you're running a business and that's your livelihood.
Yeah, and the last 2 years have been immense with the growth. It's been exciting and amazing, and
Yeah.
it's also come with a whole new set of challenges and pressure. And
Yeah.
if we weren't doing work personally to look after ourselves, then I don't think we would have got through the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think we're very different to what we were 2 years ago, both of us. I mean, you've always done the self-development things. I was a little bit slower to acknowledge and work on myself, but we're very different. Things that used to annoy me in particular is just water off a duck's back. Now it is what it is. Why waste my time or ruin my day over something that, just isn't necessary? Because my energy needs to be put into the team, and to make sure my energy needs to be that the business runs well and that I can help people and make sure that they do their work well. We have had to come from a different place to also manage that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do acknowledge the work that you've done personally as well. And a key part that I was taught and acknowledged is it's not about, my expectation can't be that you do the work. As in our relationship personally, I just had to focus on myself. And when I did focus on my stuff, it just improved the relationship. I realised that pretty much any time we've ever clashed, even if you have stuff going on, it's always been about my stuff going on as to the cause. So if I'm looking after myself and not letting my stuff get in the way, it's our relationship becomes as amazing as it ever has been. So
yeah, I think we didn't get to touch on that, but if you're doing work on yourself and your partner or someone significant other isn't, that helps you to be okay with that as well. But then obviously you navigate different
and I think over time, things may change one way or another, but it's more, you can't expect that of your partner. You just have to work on yourself, not them. And I think that's a really important part.
And I think as we get older, I think maturing has a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of the frustration for me was when I didn't get to see you. Even though we work together, we don't really see each other. And then you'd be off playing footy or going out with friends, and I'd be at home looking after the kids, which is fine. But, it gets a bit annoying. But now that we're older and mature, I want you to go out because I really want to watch my TV shows in bed.
Why am I at home?
Yeah, so it is different. We're going through different phases of life.
Yeah.
Things that are important to us now weren't as important back then, or it just shifts. And I'm sure it'll be different in 10, 20 years' time. So
yeah, definitely. And I think we'll wrap it up here, but the last thing is you can tell people who have done the work and who haven't at all ages. So you could be 40, 50, 60, 70 and you can still have those moments where you get triggered and act like a child and you know, you can see the people who have accepted I'm not going to change and I'm not going to do the work on myself versus those that have. And so at any age, even as a young adult or an older adult, you can always be doing work on yourself and it does have a massive effect on the world around you.
Yeah. And I think it's more prevalent now that people are doing work on themselves and it's okay to be vulnerable and things. You know, our parents back then, it was, you weren't vulnerable. You didn't show your soft side. That was a no-go. So, I get why.
Why they're more like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway.
Well, yep.
Thanks for sharing your story, Tom.
No worries.
A little bit of your story.
A little bit of the story.
Yeah,
yes.
you still didn't.
I still
really
didn't tell you
show
what I
us.
had for lunch. So,
Yeah.
I'll keep that one to myself.
Yeah.
Well, we'll wrap it up there. Is there any questions today, Oscar, or you don't have any others prepared?
I've got one.
Yep.
If you want.
All right. Well,
I'll come in.
Oh, wow. There you are again.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
3 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
My goodness. Thanks for sharing, Tom. That was really insightful. The question I have for you two today, true or false, a cockroach can live without its head for a week?
True.
yeah, I've heard that one as well, so I'll say true.
I thought it was more than a week, but yeah.
Maybe it was a
A
trick
week
question.
is enough.
Oh, it's true.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true, you're right.
Yeah, very good.
Well, thanks for tuning in. I hope you, you might not have learnt much there, but hopefully you did. Good chat, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.
Bye.
I want a loan to start a small business.
Small business.
For a small business.
I'm saving money to buy a small business.